Alright, today I'm going to show you how I cook swai fillets. First of all, there's two sides. There's the side that used to have skin, and there's the side that has a split V in it, which is the inside of the meat, the more porous side. I always put the skin side down. I spice the side that's open first. The first spice that I put on is turmeric. I use ground turmeric. I just sprinkle it lightly, and I'll end up spreading my spices like a rub. And yes, you'll have to wash your hands because this will stain your hands. Alright. The second spice that I use is paprika. Next, I use a small amount of cayenne pepper. Then I use garlic salt. At that point, I literally pat in the spices into the surface of the fish, trying to get them across the surface and into the meat. And that way they don't just cook off in the surface when you go to pan fry them to keep the moisture in. Then I use a little bit of dill. And lastly, I use fresh ground black pepper. Not so much as a spice, but to help it sit, it also helps with the water, is a small amount of super fine sea salt. And once again, I pat everything down so it doesn't fall off of the fish when you go to turn it and fry it. I use a large pan to fry the fish. I typically use a spray oil, and I use a 50-50 mixture of olive oil and vegetable oil. I trim to run my temperature on medium-high so that I can sear the fish. I spray a little oil on what would have been the scale side while it's starting to fry, and then I sprinkle the back side with Italian breadcrumbs lightly. Okay. Once it started to sear on the first side, and I take my breadcrumbs, I pat them in the same way I patted in the spices so they don't fall off the fish, and then I will give it a quick flip after just a minute or two. And just to brown up the bread on the other side before I put it in a baking pan. Preheat the oven. I then take the fish and I set it bread side down in a favorite baking pan. Once I got them in the baking pan, I typically just spray a tiny amount of oil around them, which helps keep them from burning and browns them correctly. Then I put them in the oven, typically on a lower rack, at approximately 275. It should take about 10 minutes, sometimes 15, depending on the size of your oven and the true heat that it gets to. Once you're done, take them out, serve them to family, give it a little squeeze of lemon, and you're good to go.